Psalm 110:7 expresses a profound message of triumph through necessity. The imagery of drinking from the brook signifies sustenance derived from humble sources, emphasizing our need for divine provision. The act of lifting his head embodies victory and divine favor after facing struggles. This verse speaks to the journey of faith, highlighting resilience and dependence on God amid challenges, essential for any leader's success. Psalm 110:7 in the Hebrew Bible states, Minahal baderek yishte, alkan yarim roash, transliterated, Min nashal baderek yishti, alkan yarim rosh. In English, this is commonly translated as, he will drink from the brook by the way, therefore he will lift up his head. To provide insight into this verse from a Hebrew perspective, let's break it down linguistically, contextually, and theologically, drawing on traditional Jewish interpretations and the nuances of the Hebrew text. 1. Linguistic breakdown. Minahal min nachal, from the brook or from the stream. The term nachal refers to a wadi or a stream, often a seasonal watercourse in the desert, symbolizing sustenance or refreshment in an arid environment. It carries connotations of life-giving water, a precious resource in the ancient Near East. Baderek kh, baderek, by the way or on the path. The word derek, path, way is rich in Hebrew thought, often symbolizing a journey, a way of life or a course of action guided by divine purpose. Ishte, yishti, he will drink. The verb shata implies taking in sustenance, possibly with a sense of urgency or necessity, given the context of a journey or battle. Alken, therefore or on account of this. This phrase indicates a causal relationship between the act of drinking and the subsequent result. Yarim roash, he will lift up his head. This idiom in Hebrew often signifies triumph, restoration, or exaltation. Lifting the head can symbolize victory over enemies, renewed strength, or divine favor. CFT Psalm 3:3. 2. Context within Psalm 110. Psalm 110 is a royal and messianic psalm, traditionally attributed to David, and it holds significant theological weight in both Jewish and Christian traditions. The psalm speaks of a divinely appointed figure, a king and priest who is exalted by God to rule and triumph over enemies. Verse 7 concludes a passage describing this figure's victorious campaign, verses 5-6, where God grants him dominion and judgment over nations. In this context, verse 7 likely depicts the king, or messianic figure, as a warrior who, in the midst of his journey or battle, baderek, pauses to drink from a brook, an act that sustains him and enables his ultimate triumph, yarim rosh. The imagery is vivid. A weary warrior finds refreshment in a humble stream, which empowers him to rise in victory. 3. Traditional Jewish interpretations. Jewish exegesis, particularly in sources like the Talmud, Midrash, and medieval commentators, e.g., Rashi, Ibn Ezra, Radak, offers varied insights into Psalm 110:7, often tying it to the broader context of the psalm's messianic or royal figure. Rashi, 11th century commentator. Rashi interprets the verse as referring to the Messiah or a righteous king. He suggests that drinking from the brook symbolizes humility and reliance on God's provision, even in small things like a stream. The lifting of the head indicates God's elevation of the righteous leader after his trials. Midrash Tehillim, Midrash on Psalms. Some Midrashic interpretations connect the brook to Torah study, a common metaphor in Jewish thought, e.g., the Torah is like water. The act of drinking represents the king or Messiah drawing spiritual strength from Torah, which enables his triumph and exaltation. Ibn Ezra and Radak. These commentators emphasize the practical imagery of a warrior refreshed by water during a campaign. Radak, for instance, sees the verse as describing a king who, despite the hardships of battle, finds sustenance and is thereby strengthened to achieve victory. In Jewish tradition, Psalm 110 is often understood as referring to a Davidic king or the Messiah, though not necessarily in the same eschatological sense as in Christian theology. The brook and lifting the head are seen as metaphors for divine support and ultimate triumph through humility and reliance on God. 4. Symbolic and theological nuances. From a Hebrew perspective, the imagery of Psalm 110:7 resonates deeply with biblical themes. Water as divine sustenance. In the Hebrew Bible, Water often symbolizes God's provision, e.g., in Psalm 23:2, He leads me beside still waters. The Nachal Brook may represent God's sustenance for the righteous leader, enabling him to continue his mission. Humility and exaltation. The act of stooping to drink from a brook suggests humility, a key virtue in Jewish thought. The subsequent lifting of the head reflects the biblical principle that God exalts those who humble themselves. Isaiah 57:15.